Confronting the shadows we avoid begins with recognizing that the darkness within us is not an enemy, but a reflection of the battles we have postponed for too long. Every fear we bury grows roots, anchoring us to places we no longer wish to remain. The shadows of Raven Ridge symbolize the moments we tried to forget because they once made us feel powerless. But the truth is, powerlessness is temporary, and its memory only gains strength when ignored. When we deny our fears, they do not disappear. They linger at the edges of our lives. They call to us in quiet moments, reminding us of unfinished journeys. Stepping toward these shadows demands courage, but it also demands honesty. Honesty about what hurt us, what broke us, and what we ran from. The shadows are not there to swallow us. They are there to show where healing must begin. To confront them is to reclaim the part of ourselves we abandoned in the dark. The streets of Raven Ridge echo with forgotten dreams, not because they were impossible, but because they were left unattended. Every abandoned path represents a choice we postponed, a challenge we refused to face. We often convince ourselves that avoidance is protection, that staying away keeps us safe, but safety built on avoidance slowly becomes a prison disguised as comfort. The longer we wait, the heavier the shadows grow, feeding on hesitation. Yet the moment we take a single step into the dark, something changes within us. We realize the danger was never in the shadow, but in our belief that we were too fragile to face it. Fear begins to loosen its grip when our footsteps echo louder than our doubts. Walking into the forgotten places of our mind reveals the strength we always carried. Raven Ridge teaches us that avoidance is the true ghost haunting our progress. As we move deeper into the shadows, we uncover truths we once tried to bury. We remember the promises we made to ourselves and the potential we once believed in. These memories return like flickering lanterns, glowing with the possibility of renewal. The darkness around them does not extinguish their light. It makes it easier to see. Clarity emerges when we stop running and start listening to what fear is trying to reveal. The shadows whisper not of failure, but of unfinished transformation. Every step toward them is a step toward rediscovering our hidden strength. We learn that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move despite it. The path through the darkness becomes a path toward rediscovery, and with each moment of honesty, the shadows begin to shift. When the shadows finally respond to our presence, they lose their power to intimidate. We realize they were never monsters but mirrors, reflecting the challenges we avoided. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable the moment we face it directly. The forgotten corners of Raven Ridge start revealing their meaning, guiding us forward. What was once a place of fear becomes a place of understanding and awakening. We uncover strengths we didn't know we had, and reclaim pieces we thought were lost. The darkness transforms from something we fear into something we learn from. The shadows stop chasing us, because we have finally stopped running. In confronting them, we break the cycle that once held us back. And the journey through Raven Ridge becomes a journey back to our strongest self. Reclaiming the parts of ourselves we abandoned begins with acknowledging the versions of us that never had the chance to grow. These forgotten fragments linger like empty houses in Raven Ridge, holding memories of who we once hoped to become. We often walk past them in our minds, pretending they no longer matter or no longer belong to us. But the truth is, every abandoned dream leaves a quiet imprint that waits for recognition. These imprints become reminders that potential does not disappear simply because time has passed. It waits, patient and persistent, urging us to return and rebuild what we left behind. When we dare to revisit these lost parts, we uncover strength that has been dormant for years. We discover that abandonment was not failure, but a pause created by fear or uncertainty. And in revisiting these places, we allow ourselves to reconnect with forgotten aspirations. The act of returning becomes the first step toward reclaiming the fullness of who we are. In the quiet corners of our minds, there are ambitions we once believed were too difficult to pursue. They sit like boarded windows in Raven Ridge, covered not by impossibility but by doubt. Every time we hesitated, questioned ourselves, or listened to voices that said we weren't enough, another window closed. Yet even behind those boards, light still tries to shine through, urging us to look again. Reclaiming these dreams requires the courage to unseal what we once shut away. It demands honesty about why we abandoned them and what stopped us from continuing. When we face these truths without judgment, we create space for renewal. We begin to understand that potential is not lost, but waiting for our willingness to return. The abandoned dreams become opportunities to rewrite our story with greater clarity, and every step toward them strengthens the belief that we are capable of more than we knew. The process of reclaiming ourselves is not about restoring what was broken, but about recognizing what still stands strong. Even in the ruins of forgotten ambitions, there are foundations built from resilience and experience. These foundations remind us that growth happens not only in success, but also in the times we feared we had failed. When we revisit these inner landscapes, we realize how much we have learned along the way. The cracks in our confidence become markers of the battles we survived and the lessons we earned. And within those cracks, new possibilities begin to emerge like light breaking through old walls. The more we explore these abandoned places, the more we uncover hidden strengths. Every forgotten moment becomes a chance to build something stronger and more intentional. The act of reclaiming becomes an act of honoring the perseverance that kept us moving. And through this recognition, we rebuild ourselves with deeper understanding and purpose. As we gather these lost pieces, we begin to realize that we were never incomplete, just disconnected from our own potential. The parts we abandoned were waiting for us to become strong enough to return for them. When we finally do, we integrate confidence, courage, and clarity we once thought we'd lost. The town of Raven Ridge shifts from a place of abandonment to a place of restoration. We walk through its quiet streets, not as someone lost, but as someone reclaiming every forgotten corner. Every rediscovered dream adds strength to our steps and certainty to our direction. The more we collect these pieces, the clearer our path becomes. We realize that nothing within us is ever truly gone, unless we choose to leave it behind. Reclaiming these parts transforms hesitation into momentum and fear into self-belief. And in this reunion with ourselves, the once forgotten town becomes a landscape of renewed possibility. Silencing the echoes of doubt begins with recognizing the voice that keeps repeating the same old limitations. This voice hides in the forgotten alleys of Raven Ridge, whispering reasons why you should not try again. It feeds on every hesitation, every past mistake, every moment you felt unworthy or unprepared. The more you listen, the more powerful it becomes, shaping your steps even when you don't notice. But doubt is only an echo, not a prophecy, and echoes lose strength when confronted. When you pause long enough to hear it clearly, you realize it carries no truth of its own. It survives only when you allow it to grow inside the quiet spaces of your mind. Once you decide to answer it with courage, its grip begins to loosen. The shadows it casts become smaller, and the voice becomes less convincing. Silencing doubt starts with refusing to let an echo define your future. In Raven Ridge, doubt lingers like cold mist around abandoned houses, seeking a place to settle. It drifts into your thoughts during moments of uncertainty, pretending to be caution or wisdom. But caution guides, while doubt restricts, pulling you away from the path you were meant to follow. You silence it not by shouting back, but by strengthening the voice that speaks truth. This voice reminds you of the times you succeeded, the challenges you overcame, the moments you grew. When you focus on those memories, the mist of doubt begins to lift. Confidence rises when you choose to trust your capabilities more than your fears. Every step you take with intention becomes a declaration against doubt's influence. And the more you walk forward, the quieter that lingering mist becomes. Movement itself becomes your strongest argument against the echo. The echoes of doubt grow louder when you stand still, but weaken when you take action. Even small steps create momentum, and momentum creates clarity the echo cannot compete with. Raven Ridge teaches that stillness invites ghosts, while action invites possibility. When you decide to move despite uncertainty, doubt is forced to fade into the background. Your footsteps become confident reminders that you are stronger than hesitation. Each decision you make becomes another wall built between you and the echo. The doubts that once felt overwhelming begin to feel distant and unimportant. You realize they were not warnings, but remnants of old fears you no longer need. Your strength grows as doubt shrinks, creating space for new beliefs to rise. And this space becomes a sanctuary where courage can finally breathe. As the echoes quiet down, your true voice begins to emerge from beneath the noise. It speaks with conviction, shaped by experience rather than fear or uncertainty. This voice is steady, grounded, and more powerful than anything doubt ever told you. It guides you through the abandoned streets of your mind, with clarity and determination. What once felt intimidating now feels manageable, because the noise is finally softened. Your thoughts become brighter, your intentions become clearer, and your confidence becomes real. The silence left behind is not empty but filled with the strength you reclaimed. With each moment of clarity, you gain control over the shadows that once haunted you. The town within you begins to awaken as doubt loses its grip entirely. And in that awakening, you hear the voice that was meant to lead you all along. Turning fear into forward motion begins with understanding that fear itself is not the enemy, but a signal pointing toward growth. In the forgotten corners of Raven Ridge, fear lingers like a chill that warns of unfamiliar ground. It makes your breath unsteady and your steps uncertain, urging you to turn back to what feels safe. But safety without progress becomes a quiet trap, keeping you in places you have long outgrown. Fear rises most fiercely when you are closest to something meaningful and transformative. When you recognize this, fear becomes less of a barrier and more of a guide. It shows you where your potential is waiting, hidden beneath discomfort and doubt. Every moment of fear is an invitation to discover strength you haven't met yet. Each tremble becomes a reminder that you are standing at the edge of something important, and the first step through fear becomes the spark that ignites forward motion. Fear gains power when left unchallenged, feeding on hesitation and uncertainty. In Raven Ridge, it takes shape in the silent houses that stare back at you from the dark. They seem menacing not because of what they contain, but because of what you imagine. Your imagination often creates threats far greater than reality, amplifying fear into paralysis. But the moment you dare to enter the unknown, the imagined monsters begin to dissolve. Fear loses its sharpness when confronted with your willingness to proceed. Every step forward reveals that most barriers existed only in your mind. The darkness becomes less intimidating as your resolve grows stronger. You start to see fear not as a wall, but as a doorway disguised as darkness, and stepping through that doorway transforms anxiety into empowerment. Forward motion does not require the absence of fear, but the decision to move with it. Your legs may shake, your heart may race, and uncertainty may circle your thoughts. Yet even in this state, every step you take disrupts the power fear tries to hold. The more you move, the more fear must retreat, unable to keep up with your momentum. You learn that progress is built on imperfect steps taken with courage, not confidence. Courage grows each time you refuse to stay frozen in place. It becomes the force that pushes you beyond the limits fear once imposed. As you continue walking, fear becomes a faint echo behind you. You gain clarity with each step, finding direction where confusion once lived. And movement becomes your strongest tool for transforming fear into strength. In time, fear becomes a familiar companion rather than a controlling force. You begin to understand its language, recognizing when it signifies growth instead of danger. The abandoned streets of Raven Ridge no longer intimidate you, they challenge you. Every shadow becomes an opportunity to rise higher than before. What once made you hesitate now fuels your determination to press forward. You realize that fear appears most intensely when you are about to break through. This realization turns fear into motivation rather than resistance. Your steps become stronger, your purpose becomes clearer, and your heart becomes braver. The darkness around you begins to brighten as your confidence expands. And forward motion becomes the path that transforms fear into a powerful ally. ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important